So there was recently a interview that Bernie Sanders did with Vice News, where he was asked if he is going to get into if he's ever going to be in a situation where he's going to go after Elizabeth Warren. So obviously Elizabeth Warren is running in the primary, Bernie Sanders is running in the primary among 20 other Democrats. The next debate, which is going to have 10 candidates on the stage, only one debate, is going to have both of them on there with Joe Biden. Andrew Yang is going to be there. Obviously, as I talked about in my last podcast, Tulsi Gabbard is not able to be on there, which many people, including myself, believe that she got screwed over from being allowed to be on there. So, but yeah, so Bernie Sanders, he was asked if he's going to get to the point of having to attack in this case, his rival, but also his friend Elizabeth Warren, who he does consider a friend. And so he was asked this by the reporter, and then he was going to give a response, and he's going to become a little bit defensive. And so let's check this out, and I'm going to give my opinion on what I think about this, and whether or not I think he should actually, criticize her and go after her in a harder way. So check this out, and then we'll discuss it on the other side.
You and Senator Elizabeth Warren have a lot of similar positions on issues. Why should someone vote for you over her?
Well, that's a decision that someone is going to have to make. I would suggest, in my defense, that I've been doing this for, as you indicated a few months ago. Check me out. And people may find me a little bit boring and repetitious, but I have been fighting these fights for about 30 years. Today I was with workers struggling against AT&T, members of the Communication Workers of America. I've been on picket lines for my whole entire life. That is what I do. I am a son of the working class. I stand with the working class. Throughout my life, I've taken on Wall Street, the insurance companies, the drug companies, the fossil fuel industry.
She's done a lot of that too.
Well, that's fine. And people will make Elizabeth happens to be a friend of mine. I've known Elizabeth for over 20 years. So I'm not here to,
But when do you have to stand up and say my plan about X, Y, and Z is better than hers? I mean, how do you win over these Democratic voters?
Well, we're winning them over every day. I mean, that's what I do.
But if you can't say what distinguishes you over her.
Well, that is not the way you necessarily win a campaign. The way you win a campaign is for people to understand what you stand for, what I stand for. So when I introduce a climate change program, you indicated there are some people who think it's expensive. You're right, it is expensive. It happens to be the most comprehensive climate change program ever introduced, and one that I think is absolutely necessary. We've introduced a far-reaching criminal justice program, which addresses the fact that we have more people in jail than any other country on earth. We've recently introduced a union labor program, which will double union membership in this country over the next 4 years, sweeping labor law reform to make it easier for workers to get into unions and to see an increase in their wages and improvement in their working conditions because they're collectively bargaining. So look at my program, look at my record as one of the, if not the most pro-worker member of the United States Senate. Previous to that, pro-worker member of the U.S. House. That's what I do.
So you won't directly criticize any of her policies?
It's not just Elizabeth. That's not what I think. That's not what I do. I mean, there will be a time and a place, obviously, where we'll.
When is that?
Well, that's a media question.
Yeah, but you're not
No,
at the
that's
top
not
of
what
the
the
pack
American
right now.
the American people are not coming up to me. The American people are saying, Bernie, how are you going to implement your Medicare-For-All
I've heard that somebody did ask you recently, though, what's the difference between you and Elizabeth Warren? Why should I vote for you? I believe that happened in a meeting recently. So that's why I'm asking you, too.
Well,
because people are asking you this, obviously. Voters are asking you.
Well, not many. I mean, what people want to know is what I stand for, and people can make that decision.
So I think a large reason for why this reporter was pressing him on this so much is because, to be honest, Bernie Sanders was going after Hillary Clinton really hard when he ran against her in 2016. And that's not a criticism, that's a good thing. And I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine who's also a Bernie supporter and, pretty progressive in their own right. And, we were talking about how we miss, and I said it myself, I don't know, but I don't think they said they agreed with me necessarily, but I was saying that I miss the 2016 version of Bernie Sanders, and I miss the fact that he was kind of just going, he just like, honestly, he just didn't give a shit. He did not give a shit, going after Hillary as hard as possible, attacking her, going after her as the establishment. By the way, when I say attack, I don't mean that as a bad thing. Again, it's the word attack has a negative connotation to it, but it's not a bad thing. If you're attacking somebody, it depends what you're attacking them on. If you're attacking them on something legitimate, then it's a legitimate thing. If it's not, then it's a different thing. And I feel like a lot of the things that Hillary Clinton was attacking Bernie for were not legitimate. They were all bullshit things. Sexism, racism, whatever, misogyny, whatever. You're too far left or blah, blah. So, or you're pro gun or whatever the hell. So, and the reason why she responded like that was because Bernie was going after her. So once Bernie started going after her, she was like, okay, fuck it, I'm going to go after him now. But she couldn't actually find legitimate reasons to go after him. She only went after him for bullshit reasons. And that was just her responding to him, going after her. So that's my feeling is the reason why this reporter was asking that. So, and if he's going to be going after Elizabeth Warren, and if he's going to be attacking her, by the way, I honestly don't think. Unless he was asked this, because this reporter is saying that they were asked, or somebody asked Bernie, "Are you going to be attacking Elizabeth Warren?" Or apparently this person was asked if Bernie's going to be asked, or whatever, they heard about it or something. Unless they were like a supporter, one of the truly progressive leftist supporters that I know, that I'm kind of connected with on social media and whatnot, and have spoken to, who don't like Elizabeth Warren, and they think that she is a corporate tool of the establishment, which she is, and unless they're one of those people, I would be surprised if he was being asked, when are you going to attack Elizabeth Warren? When are you going to attack her? Now, my feeling on the matter, and this is something that I discussed, on Twitter, and I addressed it, and a lot of people agreed with me, but then I had a couple people coming at me and saying, like, no, that's not a good idea, and one particular person I was somewhat cool with, and then I ended up having to block them because they, claimed I was contradicting myself, and all I was saying was that, first of all, I said that I'm torn on whether I want whether I want Bernie Sanders to criticize Elizabeth Warren. And I'm only torn because I know that ultimately he needs to get those Elizabeth Warren voters. At the end of the day, maybe not so much the primary, but certainly in the general, more so the general, he needs to get those Elizabeth Warren voters. Undoubtedly, he needs them. He needs to get them on his side, and Bernie Sanders is walking a much more of a tightrope, and he's walking on eggshells a hell of a lot more this time around compared to 2016, because he knows that he can't scare those people away or piss them off, especially the kind of people that say, if you're attacking a woman, you're a sexist and you're a misogynist, and if you attack, let's say, Kamala Harris, you're a racist because she's a woman of color, half Jamaican, half Indian. So if you're doing that, you're a sexist and a racist. Okay. So Bernie is not in it's not an easy situation for him to be in. And while I want him to be that balls to the wall Bernie and just like, yeah, whatever, fuck it, I'm going to say whatever I want, just like he did in 2016, and just do whatever he want and not, work, go by any rules, based on any rules or anything, kind of like Trump does a little bit. And, just kind of shooting from the hip and stuff. As much as I miss that, I understand why he's not doing doing what I'm talking about. So, and that's the same thing when it comes to him, not criticizing the DNC, for example, for what they did to him in 2016 when they rigged that primary against him, and then going after him now. And as I watched in a segment from Secular Talk, Kyle Klinsky, he made a good point, and he said that, listen, what Bernie Sanders is doing right now is he, instead of going and basically telling the DNC to fuck off and just running as an independent. He's saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to try and get Democratic voters into the process, especially like young millennials, young voters, my age, 30, in their 30s, and, obviously younger, 30 and younger. Get those people into the kind of the voting process and get them more motivated to vote for, hopefully progressive candidates, not neoliberal centrist candidates. And certainly to, also vote against Donald Trump, which obviously Bernie Sanders ultimately wants to do, because he said he will support whoever the candidate is ultimately whoever the candidate is for the Democrats, the nominee is. But it's about trying to get people involved in the political process, and he probably knows that, listen, I'm going to run for president too. Obviously he's running, but this is like a year back or 2 years back, however many years ago, after the 2016 primaries. And he knew, like, listen, we have to try and get people into the voting process, try and educate them, let them know that these are the people, these are the people that are going to be making decisions for the United States and, in this country and really the world, especially when it comes to issues like climate change and endless wars and stuff. These people have to vote in, good politicians, especially the president and whatnot, that will make decisions that are going to help us, and it's going to improve our country and our world. So he sees that, he knows that, and he wants to try and, to some extent, mend fences with the DNC. And Bernie was, because in the segment that Kyle was talking about, he played a segment from Bernie Sanders responding. He was on The View, and he was responding to Donald Trump saying something about the DNC and how Bernie Sanders got screwed by the DNC and by the Democrats. That's totally true. He did get screwed by them. Now, Bernie didn't say that in his appearance on The View, but he did, however, address what I just said. He's similar to what I just said and what Kyle said. So what I'm basically explaining that Kyle laid out, and but Bernie, he knows what he's doing. By the way, I wanted to say quickly that when Donald Trump goes out there, and I think I've mentioned this before, but when Donald Trump goes out there and talks about how the DNC screwed over Bernie Sanders, he's not wrong. But you have to understand that he's not, because people are going on saying, wow, Donald Trump is the only person talking about how Bernie Sanders got screwed by the DNC. And people, they laud and fawn at the feet of Donald Trump because he says this. He's only saying this so that he can riff off of that talking point, so that he can get Democratic voters, honestly Bernie voters, to get them onto his side, and a lot of them have onto his side, so he can be like, oh, don't worry, since you got screwed over by the Democrats and Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders didn't stand up to the DNC, which he did to some extent, but yeah, he could have done it more. But since he didn't stand up to the DNC, Donald Trump, I can represent you. So come and join the Republican Party. And he's not saying, it's not like Donald Trump is saying, oh yeah, come and join, so join my movement, and that's how he portrays it, but that's not really what it is. Come and join my movement where I'm going to get rid of corruption in the political process, because that's not what he's doing. Donald Trump has zero interest in getting rid of corruption in the political process, in just politics in general, because he's corrupt himself. But what he's doing, he's trying to recruit people from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party, and that's what this whole hashtag walk away thing is. It's this thing that's going on. This idiot, his name is Brandon Straka or something. He appeared on Fox News, and he's multiple times, and he's talking about how he's trying to get people into this movement of getting away from the Democratic Party. What's her name's kind of part of it too. She's doing it in a different way. Candace Owens is doing it in a way where it's like, well, all the black people that are voted Democrats, you should totally join the Republicans and Donald Trump because they're so much better for you. And it's just like, they're just grifting off of the idea of getting Democrats away from the party and then moving them to the Republican Party. So what I'm saying is that they're trying to get, in the case of Candace Owens, black voters, in the case of this Brandon Straka guy, getting Democrats who, supported Bernie and hate the establishment, to their credit, but they hate the establishment. They want to, but they want to get them to go and support the Republican Party. It's not that they want to go and support different policies. They just want to go get them to vote Republican. So then just turn them into Republicans, because apparently the Republican Party is so wonderful and they're offering so many great things, such as a terrible healthcare system. They keep cutting taxes for the rich, keep continuing our endless wars, which by the way Democrats have done too. But it's not like Republicans are doing anything better in that regard. So they're continuing and if not making worse the process. Republicans are. So the fact that anybody wants to walk away from the Democratic Party because you aren't happy with Bernie Sanders, not taking on the DNC is a ridiculous. It's a ridiculous gaslighting of the situation that doesn't actually involve having an honest conversation about why our political process is fucked up. And in the case, so I'm just going off a little tangent. I just wanted to point that out, though. And but when it comes to Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and him not going after, I understand it's a tough situation for him, and I see that he isn't. It's not easy for him to go into that and just be like, okay, I'm just gonna fucking rail against her like I did Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is a different animal in the sense that Bernie Sanders, like he said, him and Elizabeth Warren are friends. He doesn't want to attack her because I don't know, they're buddies and they don't want to, whatever, they don't want to attack each other. And to her credit, she hasn't attacked him either. Now Bernie Sanders supporters have attacked her. I'm sure a lot of Elizabeth Warren supporters have attacked Bernie. So it's I've definitely seen it on social media. But like Susan Sarandon or something was at some sort of event and she said like, oh well, Bernie Sanders he was never a Republican and then became a Democrat at some point in his career. I love Susan Sarandon, so she said this, and Neera Tanden went after her and a bunch of other corporate Democrats and Democrat loyalists and shit. They went after Susan Sarandon for saying this, even though she's 100% correct about Elizabeth Warren. But I don't think she mentioned Elizabeth Warren's name by name. She just said it, and then people were like, oh okay, so she's referring to Elizabeth Warren. Because that is true. Elizabeth Warren was a Republican at one point of her life, then she became a Democrat or something because she was also from Oklahoma, so she has that history in her life. Hillary Clinton was a Barry Goldwater supporter back when she was like a teen or something. I brought that up many times on Twitter. Other people have as well. So yeah, these kind of like Democrats, these right-wing, honestly, corporatist Democrats, this is how they are. This is how they've been. Now, people want to say Bernie isn't a real Democrat or isn't a Democrat. Yeah, that's fine, but he's even further to the left than the Democrats. So if you want to say he's not a Democrat, at least he doesn't believe in some right-wing policies like the likes of Joe Manchin do. He's a hell of 10 times better than fucking Joe Manchin. 10 times better than Chuck Schumer, who believes in Israel, permanently occupying Palestine and killing innocent Palestinians, men, women, and children. So just to bring up a few examples of right-wing Democrats, let alone Hillary Clinton and all that stuff. But but I get what Bernie's doing. At this point, I don't think he should attack Elizabeth Warren. He still has to deal with Joe Biden. He still has to deal with Kamala Harris, whose campaign is fledgling at this point. Beto O'Rourke and Pete Buttigieg. I'm not really too worried about them. Andrew Yang, I'm not worried about. Obviously, it would have been nice if Tulsi Gabbard, like I said before, was on the debate stage, but she's not going to be there. He wouldn't go after Tulsi anyway. By the way, he was also asked about Tulsi Gabbard during that conversation that he had on The View as well, and he said, Tulsi Gabbard's a friend, but the DNC decided not to allow her in the next debate because, as I explained, she didn't make it high enough in certain polls and stuff, which is bullshit because they cherry-picked polls. But I don't know. There wasn't much Bernie could say about that. They're trying to get Bernie. They're trying to kind of, poke and prod Bernie to criticize the DNC. And, again, smartly, he isn't doing it because he knows he's going to get himself into hot water if he does. But as long as he's sticking to the right policies and he's pushing to work to reform the kind of the process, especially when it comes to superdelegates, which he spoke about on The View as well, in response to Donald Trump's, Bernie DNC tweet or whatever, he also talked about how they got superdelegates not to be allowed to vote on the first ballot when it comes to the Democratic convention and Democratic National Convention. So there have some reforms that have been done regarding that process, and Bernie has fought for that, and that's a large part of what he did before he ended up conceding to Hillary Clinton in the primary in 2016. He tried to get as many progressive DNC reforms as passed as possible. He pushed for it, and then eventually he was like, all right, we got some of what we wanted. I'll help you defeat Donald Trump, which ultimately didn't happen because Hillary Clinton was a shitty candidate. No matter how hard Bernie Sanders would have campaigned for her, which he did. He worked his fucking ass off doing like more than 40 events for her, as much as people want to claim like he didn't campaign for her hard enough, or whatever, attacked her unfairly and that affected her. But I ended up voting Green. I voted for Jill Stein. So, but I voted in California anyway, where California was going to go to the Democratic winner anyway. In that case, Hillary Clinton. So, but yeah, so I mean, like Bernie Sanders has done everything that he can do to try and make the process of what the Democratic Party and the DNC does better. But there's still a long way to go to fix it, and hopefully he does not get screwed again. I don't know. I mean, I have my worries. I don't trust the DNC, the Democrats at all. I only trust Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, essentially. And I definitely do not trust Elizabeth Warren because she's trying to, as I explained before, trying to suck up to the establishment. And, I read an article today how she's, trying to, get all cozy with Hillary Clinton now. And so it's just like she's trying to do every single thing possible to try and get the Democratic Party on her side to help her get her across the finish line. And it's terrible. But it's not surprising. Again, it's not something you should be totally surprised by. I'm definitely not surprised by it. And it's just that's the kind of thing these corporates do. And Elizabeth Warren is part of that system, and is making herself a part of that process as well. And she's making no bones about it. So we'll see what happens between Bernie and Elizabeth Warren when it comes to whether they're going to go after each other. Ultimately, I don't think they will. I think it is to his benefit to keep saying what he's saying. I wish he could go after her harder, but he can't. And I don't think that's going to help him. And, the reason why somebody got mad at me and I blocked them, they blocked me. But the reason why they got mad at me was because I was saying that whatever Bernie ends up doing, we'll have to accept it. And all I was saying is that if Bernie Sanders ends up not deciding to, attack Elizabeth Warren, we have to accept it because that's what he wants to do. And we can't make him go out there and attack Elizabeth Warren. He's going to go and do what he's got to do that he thinks is that is for the betterment of his campaign, and ultimately leads to him winning, this primary. Now, whether that involves attacking Elizabeth Warren or not attacking her, I don't know. Again, I'm kind of stuck in the middle. I want her to attack her, want him to attack her, but at the same time, I think it's too big of a risk, and it's going to get way too many people that support Elizabeth Warren to not want to vote for him in this primary, or let alone the general election too. Especially if they are like former Hillary voters that support Warren and then are still bitter about what happened in 2016 with Bernie and him going after Hillary in the primary and stuff. So a lot of Warren supporters are former Hillary supporters. They're leftovers from 2016 that loved Hillary, and they're gonna try and help not make Bernie Sanders the nominee, even if they don't have to vote for him in the general election. And that's something that Bernie Sanders has to avoid as much as possible.